about full art basic lands.
in Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
Yeah, I have thoughts about this.
You have opinions?
I have opinions.
How do you...
And I've shared them.
Before we get into that, how do you feel about full art lands in general?
In
They're awesome,
general, I think they're pretty great. They're a fun way to explore the planes outside of what we normally see with the basic lands. I've really enjoyed some of the treatments we got in Neon Kamigawa. I've really enjoyed I really enjoyed the Tolkien lands we got for Lord of the Rings, the maps.
Oh, yeah.
Even though they weren't as individually visually distinctive, I still really loved the flavor of that. Yeah. That was great for me. For Caverns, don't love these. How about you?
Yeah, I was more on the fence at the beginning, but I didn't understand what I didn't like until I saw someone else pointed out on Reddit. They look like ad cards. Yeah. And I had examples to compare with. They have in the same way that the ad cards have a black bottom that fades up with no border, and then the text toward the bottom. And they kind of resemble ad cards in that way.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's one thing. But then you want to talk about the particulars of them? Yeah,
so for me, one of the things that I like to do with my various decks, whether it's Commander, Pauper, generally not Sealed or Draft, but if I'm building a constructed deck, I like to go through and curate the lands. I like to pick something that's going to work aesthetically or calls back to a major theme within the deck itself. And so one of my issues with these is I don't really like these as representations of Caverns of Ixalan as a set. Yeah. The colors, I think, work with the overall color palette that we see in a lot of the art. I do like the glyph designed mana symbols. Yeah. But outside of that, they kind of feel my initial impression, because I had a similar thought process of seeing them, not really loving them, and having kind of a hard time putting my finger on what it was that bothered me. Because individually, I don't have a problem with any of the art that they used, but they remind me of pulp sci-fi book covers. Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. It just doesn't really work for me in terms of what I feel like this set was about. And I kind of think I see what they were going for, because we have a lot of sort of Indiana Jones feeling, Journey to the Center
That's
of the
supposed to be,
Earth.
okay, so Indiana Jones is supposed to be Zendikar, but absolutely.
But it's kind of, I got some of that vibe.
Once you brought this up before, I realized Journey to the Center of Ixalan. It's very so it's blatant like reference.
Very blatantly referenced. I'm like, okay, I can kind of see that connection. Yeah. But there are really no circumstances where I would include these lands in an Ixalan themed deck. I don't feel like they really go with especially like the showcase art card, not art cards, but like the showcase alt arts that we got.
Yeah, everything. I didn't even really register that the Journey to the Center of the Earth was kind of the sub theme of the set at first. I mean, it was there. I should have seen it, but I was really just, I saw a Mesoamerican, kind of like, just like the original Ixalan. And these things just didn't fit everything else. I mean, there's all these variants, these different special art treatments in the set, but all the others seem to be within that theme. And like I said, the mana symbols on these are kind of in that, but the font is completely different.
It's very out of left field,
modern and I don't know, elegant, and just certainly not evocative of what the rest of the set is. Yeah. But the art, when you brought up the comparison to pulp sci-fi, I started looking at sci-fi book covers through time, starting with, well, what did the cover of Journey to the Center of the Earth look like? And it's had a bunch of different covers, but the first one, it came out in like 1847. It was very not anything we currently view as a sci-fi art style. It's pre-sci-fi. It's just some dudes on a boat. And and then most of the pulp sci-fi and fantasy art that I found, just kind of glancing through time, didn't really match this style either. But Art Deco, like the cover of Metropolis, or sorry, not that, but the poster for the movie Metropolis, it's monochrome and it uses just the shading from that one tone, and that is pretty similar. There's 2 or 3 tones in each of these arts, but it's kind of that same vibe.
Yeah.
You think that's kind of what
yeah, and I mean maybe pulp wasn't quite the right word. It sort of just grabbed me as like, I feel like none of these would be out of place if I was walking through a bookstore, facing out on a fantasy shelf.
Yeah, and I dug through my bookshelves of old stuff, and I found a couple of things that are kind of these low 2 or 3 tone things, but they're like late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, I think that was kind of the feeling that I was getting, that like 2 to 3 tones, generally, struggling to find the words I want for that, but that generally sort of stylized. I mean, we do have a lot of cool evocative scenes here.
Yeah. I spent a lot of time looking at these now.
I just don't feel the connection there that I was hoping for. And I don't see myself using these in a Ixalan deck, which is, to me, a failing of them. Because that's what I want to collect basic, full art basics for, is I want to use them in a cool way with a flavorful legendary creature and commander. I want to put it in a 60 card constructed deck where these feel at home, and I don't know what these would go with aesthetically.
Yeah, they don't go with the rest of the set. They, just looking at them, I guess actually throughout the set, I didn't realize until I kind of went through the story and started looking at the art a lot more carefully that most of the art is set not on the surface, because that's not where this story happens, but in the core. And a lot of it's in the caves between the core and the surface. But I think all 5 of these arts are of the core, and you see Chimil, the inner sun, in each of them. On the mountain, it's kind of vague, but I think that it looks kind of like they're in a tunnel or looking up toward a tunnel, rather than in the middle of or on the inner surface of a sphere.
Yeah.
But all of them, the other ones explicitly have the sun with the reef. Is it called? It's the Cosmium reef. It's made of cosmium. I forget what it's called. But they have the bits of the reef there. And it's interesting. The swamp one, the perspective on it shows the sun kind of on the horizon behind a temple.
Yeah.
But that's impossible in the core, because the sun's in the center. So it's always overhead. Like it's always noon. So I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, I'm not sure what perspective this is from. I
think it's from the this looks cool perspective, because really, I mean, which one of these is the best? I know you're incredibly biased.
I am incredibly biased.
But I think your bias would be correct.
Yeah.
It's the best. It's the most pure in using really just like one tone. And it's really evocative and beautiful.
Yeah, it's definitely the swamp.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, if I was gonna use one of these, that'd probably be it. But like you said, where does this go? Maybe in a gnomes deck. They're part of the theme, and this. Yeah, but that's the closest thing, and it just really doesn't fit in with everything else.
Yeah, I think upon looking at them again, I would definitely choose a different font.
Yeah.
That would be where I would start with, like, how would I improve these? I would change the font.
Yeah, I think part of the fundamental thing that makes them not feel like a Magic card is virtually every basic, all the full art basics, usually they have a frame of some kind rather than just, I mean, the black border, maybe some kind of frame, but usually there's more of a traditional frame on the outside, even though the art is bigger and takes up most of the card. And usually the font is the standard Magic font, and at least at the top or bottom it says, the name of the card in a more standard way, but everything is just a little too different, and it just doesn't land the same way.
Yeah, with the exception of the mountain, it's still there a little bit, but these do all have that, I don't know if we still have the art card handy, but, or the ad card that you were showing off, where...
Well, even this one from...
Yeah, we have that sort of gradient lower fourth of the card.
Yeah. Hold that the side here so I can compare it.
Yeah. And that's very consistent through it. I feel like it's not as much on the mountain.
Yeah. But the other sort of blends, especially
like
the plains.
The plains is probably the worst one in that regard. That's interesting. Yeah. Hello.
We have
a guest.
Well, any other thoughts on the lands? Is that pretty much sum it up?
I think that pretty much sums up what I wanted to say about them.
All right. I have feelings about the rare duels, but
Yeah.
we'll talk about that next.
Okay, that'll be another episode.
Okay.